NoDQ Galaxy. We are live with a recap of AEW Dynamite New Year's Smash 2022, the final Dynamite of the year. 2023 will apparently be a new era for Dynamite. It's been a while, guys. About a week. Last week's Dynamite. The last time I was here for a live stream. Not too often I have a week off from live streaming, but SmackDown was taped and then Raw was a clip show. Just happened to be the lowest rated Raw of all time, but that's to be expected with a 3-hour clip show. Dynamite, though, was live, and it was an action-heavy show. Lots of quality wrestling, if that's your thing. So let's dive right into it. Our first match of the evening was Bryan Danielson versus Ethan, don't call him Adam, Paige. MJF was up in the luxury box. He provided an early distraction. He had some woman with him. He said she was the only hot chick in Colorado. Speaking of Colorado, red hot crowd tonight. They were into pretty much everything on the show. They were loud. They brought the energy. Kudos to them. Ethan Page took a cheap shot at Bryan. And then Bryan used his quickness, got in some offense, targeted the legs of Ethan Page, but then Stokely Hathaway got on the apron. Bryan flipped off the hat that Stokely was wearing and then sent Page to the outside. Stokely got in Bryan's face on the outside. Page took advantage and eventually got the upper hand for a while. Bryan then regained control after the commercial break. They both ended up on the outside again, and Bryan came off the apron. Stokely pulled Page out of the way, and then Page hit a power slam on the floor. Then, back in the ring, both of them ended up on the top. Page actually hit an avalanche power slam on Bryan off the top. Bryan kicked out of it. Bryan then made his comeback, hit the running knee, did the elbow strikes, put on the submission, did not need the tap out. Ethan Page was out cold. Bryan Danielson, your winner. He looked over at MJF. I'm thinking we're getting this match at Revolution. They're doing the slow build for it. Doesn't look like it's happening anytime in the next couple weeks. Not even Los Angeles. I think they're saving it for the Revolution pay-per-view. Very good match here to open up the show. And then we had Wardlow interviewed backstage for his main event TNT title opportunity against Samoa Joe. But Joe attacked Wardlow and left him laying with a lead pipe. Then we had a backstage clip of Adam Page with the Dark Order. He was asked about being cleared from the concussion. Still doesn't know when he's going to be back. The medical official that was there, the trainer, said that it could happen in 2 weeks, which is the Los Angeles show. However, Adam Page needs to stay away from Jon Moxley until he's cleared. Otherwise, it may never happen. Next up, we had a tag team match, Jon Moxley and Claudio versus Top Flight, Darius and Dante Martin. Chat room, what did you think of this match? Did you think that this match lived up to the hype? Do you think that it was filler? Let me know your thoughts in the chat room on this match. Top Flight, coming off some momentum. They won the Trios Battle Royal this past Friday on Rampage. They went for dives early on, but got caught by the veterans. However, they did get some offense in. They targeted Moxley's knee. Claudio eventually got a hot tag. And then he gave Darius the big swing and something I don't think I've seen before. It was like jump rope, and you had Dante jumping twice as Darius was being swung. I thought that was unique. I'll give them credit for that one. Darius and Cesaro, Claudio, whatever you want to call them, they went back and forth for a while. Claudio hit the neutralizer, but Darius kicked out. And the crowd was shocked by this, by the way. They chanted, "Holy shit." Moxley then took out Dante with a lariat and then DDT'd him on the outside. Darius was pretty much out cold, but he would not give up the fight. He slapped Claudio in one last act of defiance, and then Claudio took out Darius with an uppercut and picked up the 1-2-3 victory. And it was quite the uppercut. Another good match here. The reason I asked the question earlier is because, we saw Action Andretti win that match a few weeks ago against Chris Jericho, but did anybody really think Top Flight was going to win this? It was still a good match. I enjoyed it. Same thing with the first match. I mean, Ethan Page was never winning that, but it was still a good match. And the crowd was loving both matches. Like I said, the crowd really brought this show up. They were very happy. I believe this was the first Dynamite in Colorado since the crowds opened up again. I believe they were in Colorado right before the COVID-19 pandemic started. We had Hook appearing on Dynamite. He's starting to get more TV time on the main show. He picked up a quick victory, winning a squash match with the Red Rum. And then the Firm interrupted his victory. Jungle Boy then arrived to even the odds. You had Big Willie get into the ring, and he stood up to Hook. Hook would not back down. And then Hook was in trouble, but Jungle Boy came in with a 2x4 and sent Willie to the outside of the ring. Nothing wrong with this. Like this little team here. The Jungle Hook. We'll get a tag match at some point. Chris Jericho cut a backstage promo hyping up his match next week against Ricky Starks. Called Ricky Starks a flash in the pan. And Colin Andrew calls Jack Perry Hacksaw Jack Perry. I like it. Colin, I appreciate your contributions in the chat room. Chat room, let's get some more comments here. This is the end of an era, by the way. I should point out the last traditional Dynamite recap. Next week, I'm changing it up. I'm flipping the script, and clearly I need to with the lack of interactions tonight. But Colin, Michael Wayne, RoboBuck, Ken Terminates DQ. I appreciate it. You guys are helping out here, but I need more support here. Chat room, leave your thoughts. Let's get some interactions here on this show, some critiques. I want to know what you thought of the show, and I'm not getting much feedback here. So let me know what's up. So Jericho cut this backstage promo. He called Ricky Starks a flash in the pan and said that he doesn't have all the tools. He warned Action Andretti to go back to the Indies. And then Ricky Starks, later on in the show, had a little rebuttal promo. He talked about how he will get his revenge on Chris Jericho coming up next week. First Dynamite of the new year in Seattle. We had Swerve backstage cutting a promo, talking about how he had to get rid of the guy that did not see his vision, Keith Lee, the cinder block attack last week, and said that he needed to get people that are with him and have his back. Wheeler Yuta showed up, not a big fan of this type of violence. He likes violence, but not this kind that Swerve did to Keith Lee. He said that he wanted to dish up some violence and challenged Swerve to a match on Rampage. We then had our Falls Count Anywhere match 6 of the best of 7 series. Falls Count Anywhere, the Elite versus the Death Triangle, the Trios champions. And it started in the backstage area. They were not waiting to get to the ring. And you had chaos. You had Pac with a moonsault off the risers onto the Young Bucks. And then Phoenix was back body dropped through one of the catering tables. Nick jumped off the risers, putting Penta through another catering table. And then eventually everybody ended up by the stage. Phoenix jumped off the tunnel onto the Bucks. And then Omega came out of nowhere, hitting Phoenix with a V trigger. Matt then did the Northern Lights suplex, going all the way down to the ring from the top of the stage. That was pretty cool. And then after that, everybody was finally in the ring. Death Triangle triple teamed Omega for a while. Young Bucks got back in it. Omega hit a trash can assisted V trigger. Then he hit the Doctor Bomb on the trash can, but there was a kick out. Then the Fear Factor was hit on Omega on the floor. Remember, Falls Count Anywhere. Bucks broke it up. And then the Bucks hit the Indie Taker to Penta on the floor. Pac broke that up. Crowd was absolutely loving this. Chanted Fight Forever. Omega hit the BTE trigger to Penta, but Pac broke it up. And then Matt accidentally super kicked Nick. And Pac put Matt in a submission. But as this was going on, Kenny Omega was with Phoenix. They were up on a platform by the crowd, one of the entryways into the arena, and gave him the one-winged angel off the top through another table and picked up the win. But Pac thought that he won the match. However, Omega got the pin before the tap out. So yes, the Elite got the win here. Hell of a match. I really enjoyed the match. Lots of fun. Only negative, as you guys might guess, it was predictable. We all knew the Elite was winning this, and we were going to match 7. It was a very fun match, though. I really enjoyed it. I just wish it wasn't as predictable as it was. Still, predictability aside, really strong match. Pay-per-view quality match, quite frankly, and one could argue it might have been the best match of the series, at least of the televised matches. Hamp Connell sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Hamp. I appreciate it. Says, today in history, 1997, WCW Starrcade in Washington, D.C. saw perhaps the biggest match in WCW history, Hollywood Hogan versus Sting for the world title. I did post a clip of that on Twitter earlier today. Should have been one of the most memorable moments in WCW history, and I guess it is memorable, but more for the controversy surrounding it, the so-called fast count by Nick Patrick, which was actually not a fast count, and they were making reference to the Montreal screw job that was about a month and a half after Bret Hart left WWE. A lot of people say the finger poke of doom was the end of WCW, but I think this was really the beginning. And if you haven't seen it before, it's on my account, twitter.com/Aaron Rift. I did tweet the video. To me, that was really the beginning of the end. WCW business stayed strong for about a year and a half after that. But to me, this was the iceberg hitting the Titanic moment, more so than the finger poke of doom. I think people like to associate the demise of WCW with the finger poke of doom, but there were plenty of really bad segments that that I think did more long-term damage to WCW. And to me, the real beginning of the end was that finish, Sting versus Hogan. And the match itself was very disappointing too. I still get triggered by Sting coming out there and he doesn't have his jacket on properly. He looks very unenthusiastic, and Hogan was beating him down for most of the match. Just wasn't what you were hoping to expect with that much buildup that they put into it. Now, LaShawn Davis sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you very much for that, LaShawn. I appreciate it. Says, Dynamite was great tonight. It was a hell of a show from a wrestling standpoint. If you like the quality matches, it almost felt like a mini pay-per-view in terms of the in-ring quality. So, yeah, and in that sense, it was a really strong show. And we had a really fun little video that aired, a Max Caster acclaimed music video, a diss track directed towards Double J, Jeff Jarrett, and Jay Lethal, but mostly Jeff Jarrett. And he had some great lines. He brought up Global Force Gold, which was what some people thought was a type of scam. And they called Jeff Jarrett a carny, a guy who rips people off, hasn't been relevant since 2004, and even brought up a line about Jarrett stealing things like it's Kurt Angle's wife. Ouch. And said he's the worst Jeffrey since Dahmer. And they did bring up Jay Lethal a little bit, said that he was part of the worst era of Ring of Honor and just has to copy other wrestlers. But the Jeff Jarrett digs were really the highlight. I was very entertained by this. Great stuff here from the Acclaimed. And we had the women's match right at 9:20. What a shocker. Last week they got the main event, but this week they're back in their spot. Every now and then Tony Khan's like, all right, let's put a women's match in the main event or somewhere other than 9:20. But 9 times out of 10, it's the 9:20 spot. We had Anna J, and Ty Conti versus Willow Nightingale and Ruby Soho. Ruby really wanted to get her hands on Ty Conti, but Ty would tag herself out. You had the JAS team working over Willow for a while, and eventually you had Ruby getting the hot tag. She finally got her hands on Ty, hit the no future kick, but Ty kicked out. They double teamed Ty, but Anna Jay came in and broke it up, and Willow suplexed Anna on the outside of the ring. Ruby and Ty went back and forth in the ring, and then Anna Jay tried to use a chair. The referee grabbed the chair from her, but because of this distraction, Ty was able to grab another chair, use it on Ruby, and then hit the Ty KO, the move that broke Ruby's nose, and she scored the 1-2-3 victory. So, interesting finish here, keeping this storyline going. And it was fine. I mean, not at the level of the other matches, which is probably why it was at 9:20, but it had its moments. D. Martin Fifth with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, why is it that the women are featured at the 75, 80, or 90-minute mark of almost every Dynamite? Well, that would be a great question to answer by Tony Khan. Not sure I can answer that one. The only person that knows is Tony himself, and I'm not sure if he's ever answered the question or not, but I feel like it's because he knows it's not the strongest part of the show, and that's why it's put in that semi-main event spot, because he wants the show to start strong and he wants the show to end strong. So naturally, you put in a big match at the beginning, put in a big match at the end. And again, every once in a while, you have a women's match where it makes sense to be in the main event. I say at least give them like the 8:45 spot or something, just so it's not as predictable. The women's segment doesn't have to be the main event every week, but, maybe change it up a little bit. Don't make it so predictable. LaShawn Davis with a $2 super chat. Thank you again. I appreciate it. Says, I appreciate you, Aaron. Keep up the good work. Thank you for that. And thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate the people that are contributing in the chat room and leaving comments and their thoughts on the show. Hamp Connell with a $20 super chat. Thank you for the generous super chat, Hamp. I appreciate it. Says, today in history 2009. Speaking of Bret Hart, Vince McMahon announced Bret Hart's return to WWE for the first time since 1997 to host Raw the next week. A response to, wait for it, Hogan's debut in TNA. Have a happy new year. That was an interesting period. I remember when Bret Hart was announced and then Hulk Hogan was coming in. Everybody thought it was going to be a new Monday Night War. But then after the first week, wasn't going to happen. That first show, I knew back then. I remember I wrote a not so positive recap on Facebook of that show. I should see if I can find it and repost it on NoDQ. But I thought they blew it that first Monday night. And to me, the war was already over before it got started. TNA, right from the beginning, when you had that McDonald's cage match and Jeff Hardy just randomly shows up, just sits in the crowd. Like, what a lame-ass way to have him return to the company. And he was fresh off of the biggest run of his career, and they just treated him like another guy. And I remember Ric Flair just randomly showed up. Like, the debuts were very lackluster. And then Hogan came out. They got rid of the six-sided ring. They brought out Hall and Nash. And, it was a nostalgia show. And that wasn't what the TNA fans wanted. They wanted the future. They wanted the Samoa Joes and the AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, so on and so forth. So, it was a very lackluster show. And, it just got worse from there. All right, and then we had our main event segment of the evening, Wardlow versus Samoa Joe, but Wardlow was hurt. Joe attacked him with a lead pipe. Joe came to the ring. Wardlow did not show up, and Joe said that Wardlow had stage fright. Wardlow then came out. You had the officials telling him, no, don't do it, but he was having none of it. He got in the ring. We had the match. He took it to Joe for a while, but then Joe got the upper hand, and then the trainers were checking on Wardlow. He was selling his knee that Joe attacked, and then after the commercial break, Wardlow started to make a comeback, hit a big swanton, could not make the cover, and then he hit a whisper in the wind. He was able to make the cover on this occasion, but Joe kicked out. You had a few more near falls. And somehow Wardlow managed to powerbomb Joe out of the corner, was going to go for the second powerbomb, the powerbomb symphony. However, his leg gave out on him. Joe targeted it, put on the submission, and Wardlow passed out. Match was over. Samoa Joe, still your TNT champion, which I like Samoa Joe. And I mentioned him earlier when talking about TNA. Back then, he was the future, but now, time to put over some other people. And I'm a little surprised that Wardlow did not get the title back here. Joe can be the Ring of Honor guy and work with the Ring of Honor guys, but I really don't think he should be TNT champion. I think Wardlow should have gotten the title back here, although maybe they're going to save it for the pay-per-view. We'll see. Because afterwards, they did this angle where Joe attacked Wardlow again, hit him with the championship, and then Joe grabbed a pair of scissors, headbutted the referee, and then cut off the hair of Wardlow. Maybe they're going to repackage Wardlow a little bit, maybe change up his look or something. Again, we'll see. But yeah, this makes me think that there will be a rematch, and maybe Wardlow will get the title at the pay-per-view. Afterwards, Darby Allin showed up and attacked Samoa Joe with the skateboard. So I guess we're getting Joe versus Wardlow, or not Joe versus Wardlow, Joe versus Darby Allin again, possibly on next week's show in Seattle. They really didn't tease anything for that, but I mean, that would have made sense in Darby's neck of the woods. Maybe they'll announce something on Rampage. And yeah, I'm thinking Joe beats him, and then we get Wardlow versus Joe one more time, and Wardlow wins the title. But ultimately, Wardlow should be going over. You know, he's the future and Joe's the past. So we'll see how that plays out. And overall, very strong show. Like I said, almost like a mini pay-per-view in terms of the wrestling quality. A little light on the promos, and, you know, I like my balance. I like some more talking. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. They like to, you know, watch wrestling for wrestling, but I like it for the soap opera stuff and the storytelling, both in the ring and on the mic and all that stuff. So I give it a B+. I think it was a very good show. If I'm just rating it based off of wrestling, I'd give it an A-. I mean, it was a really strong show. So yeah, nice way to wrap up the year for Dynamite. Very entertaining. And that was the final Dynamite of 2022. Next week is a new era, not just for AEW, but also here on the NoDQ channel. So next week, I'm, like I said earlier, flipping the script. I am going to be recapping the shows, but I'm going to be ranking the segments from worst to best. So that way, you have to tune in for the whole thing. You're not going to know where I'm going to rank certain things. You might have a guess, but you won't know for sure unless you watch the whole thing. You have to see how I rank the segments, and it'll be fun. It'll be a nice change of pace to rank the segments. And for instance, this week, I think I would go with the Elite versus the Death Triangle as my top segment of the night. That's next week. Flipping the script, changing things up a little bit. And speaking of changes, not Thursday night, but rather Sunday night, January 1st, not August, I'm thinking of TNA. January 1st warning. We're doing the NoDQ review Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, the new time slot for the NoDQ review moving forward, except for when there's a Sunday event like WrestleMania Night 2, as Michael Wayne points out on Twitter. So that's Sunday. And then Friday night, we got John Cena returning, going to be a huge show. I'll be doing the last traditional recap on Friday night for SmackDown. And then starting next week with Raw, it'll be the new format where I rank the segments from worst to best. Thank you all again so much. I appreciate everybody for tuning in and supporting the channel. And hopefully we get a good turnout next week. I'm looking forward to it. Best thing you can do is just tell a friend. Spread the word. Tweet your friends on Twitter. Send a link to this video. Share, share, share. If even one person that never watched this before comes in, that could help out a lot, because they might tell somebody and word of mouth can spread that way. So just tell a friend any way you can. Call them, email them, smoke signal them, whatever you can do. It's very much appreciated. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your 2022. Say yes to NoDQ.com, and I will see you all next time.